Every year, we see young players rise to stardom. Carson Wentz is only 24 years old, and he may win the MVP. To be able to stay competitive in this league, teams need their young players to step up right away, because if they don't, they may find their way to the exit and never come back. But there are some who weren't good right away. Guys who didn't perform well, were cut multiple times, and then just dominated late in their career. This video is dedicated to 4 of the NFL's greatest late bloomers. Look guys, let me be real. Without companies sponsoring my content, I wouldn't be able to consistently make these videos. So I want to give a huge shout out to SeatGeek. And SeatGeek is great because it's late in the season and it may be hard to get tickets. And SeatGeek is an app that puts tickets from all over the web in one area, which makes buying simple. They rate these deals on a scale of 1 to 100, with the higher the number, the better the deal. And if you use my promo code KTO at checkout, you can get $20 off your first purchase. So just go ahead and click the link in the description. Come on, you don't want to lose out on cheap tickets. Number 1. The Raiders. They had a bounce back season last year after making it to the playoffs for the first time in what seems like forever. To see the last time they even made it, we gotta go back to 2002, when they made it to the Super Bowl with the league's MVP. That man was Rich Gannon. He was 37 years old and playing the best football of his career. Now, let me take you back 16 years. Rich Gannon was a senior at the University of Delaware, a school that looks exactly like Michigan and plays like Georgia Tech. Yeah, they ran the option. Rich Gannon was perfect for it. Because of his natural athleticism, he was drafted in the 4th round by the New England Patriots. And with no trust in his quarterback skill set, they actually wanted him to play defensive back, receiver, or running back. After he found this out, he refused to sign his rookie contract. So the Patriots were forced to trade him to Minnesota. For 3 years, he only appeared in 7 games. And even during his 4th season when he got his first real opportunity, he was inconsistent at best. He never really earned the starting job in Minnesota, and just sort of played quarterback musical chairs for another 2 years after that. After a brief 1 year in Washington as a backup, and sitting out a year with injury, he would head over to Kansas City where he would spend another 4 years as a backup. From 1987 to 1998, he was a career backup, and nothing more. After his final year in Kansas City, he signed with the Oakland Raiders, where they were running a West Coast style offense under John Gruden. And immediately, Rich Gannon was a Pro Bowler for 3 seasons straight. All of a sudden, the 36-year-old career backup was one of the best quarterbacks in the league. This all built up for the following year. 2002. This team was made of old man strength. Rod Woodson was 37, Bill Romanowski 36, Rich Gannon 37, Tim Brown 36, and the late great Jerry Rice was 40. This team coasted through the regular season, then dismantled their opponents in their AFC playoff run, and found their way to the Super Bowl. Rich Gannon was the league's MVP, and made his 4th Pro Bowl in a row. They were even matched up against their former coach, which made for a greatly anticipated game. But this is where it all went downhill. Their starting center disappeared the night before the game, and then Rich Gannon threw 5 interceptions. Controversy still looms to this day about a possible conspiracy that the Raiders coach threw this game. Still, the accolades that Rich Gannon was able to get after being mostly a backup for over a decade is quite impressive. Number 2. In the 2008 NFL Draft, the Panthers decided to take a tight end late. They were hoping to give quarterback Jake Delhomme another weapon in the pass game, and Gary Barnidge was an X-factor at Louisville. But years went by, and Barnidge would only play on special teams. And when he played on offense, he only averaged 5 catches a year. Nearing the end of his rookie contract, he finally caught his first career touchdown. This was 5 years after being drafted. And after that season, the Panthers decided to not re-sign Barnidge. At this point in his career, it seemed like the media and coaches had an idea of who he was as a player. This Sports Nation article revisited the 2008 draft class years later. It says that Barnidge was a core special teams player, but not much after that. And that's when the Cleveland Browns decided to pick him up as a special teamer and also to add a little depth at tight end. For 2 years, he was a backup to star tight end Jordan Cameron. But after 2014, Jordan Cameron left to Miami, which left the tight end spot open for grabs. So going into 2015, to say the least, what would take place seemed unthinkable.
Play action to Duke Johnson, looks, throws, left side from Barnage, what a catch down by the pylon!
His knee is down, his knee was down before his elbow was, that's going to be a catch.
Pressure now, can't step up, oh what a catch! Gary Barnage! That's, oh they're coming. And he's throwing Barnage, and caught between his legs. Kim, check out this! I don't think it ever touches the ground. It did not. What an incredible play by the tight end.
If you picked up this guy in fantasy that year, oh man, you found a diamond. He had over 1,000 receiving yards and 9 touchdowns. This was his combined stats from his 7-year career before 2015. After that spectacular season, he would go on to be a Pro Bowler. But after the season, Barnage would undergo a sports hernia surgery just before the 2016 season. And although his stats dropped off in 2016, he was still one of the few bright spots in what was one of the worst teams I've ever watched. And due to the Browns rebuilding, they released Barnage after the 2 best years of his career. To think that this man isn't on a roster right now shocks me. Number 3. Kurt Warner. The man who didn't even throw his first touchdown in the NFL until he was 28 years old. To put that in perspective, that's how old Cam Newton is right now. And he's been in the league for 7 years. By the way, Cam has won MVP. Kurt Warner won it twice. So let me take you back to 1993. After being a 1-year starter at Northern Iowa, Kurt Warner had won Conference Player of the Year. But that wasn't impressive enough to be selected in the '94 NFL Draft. He did get a shot with the Green Bay Packers after the draft, but after competing with Ty Detmer, Mark Brunell, and Brett Favre, Kurt Warner was gone before the season started. And that's when the legend of the grocery store began. Yes, while most other young quarterbacks are learning playbooks, Kurt Warner was stocking shelves and bagging groceries in Iowa. It was only for less than a year though. The Arena Football League was going to expand to Iowa, and since that was close to Warner, he put in his 2 weeks notice, and he took his chance. After dominating for 2 seasons, he was already considered one of the greatest arena players ever, and it was enough so to earn a contract with the St. Louis Rams. He still couldn't get a roster spot though, so the Rams sent him over to Europe, where once again he dominated. That's when he finally made it onto the Rams roster, where he was the 3rd string quarterback. At this point, it was 1998, and he finally got into a game. His first appearance in the NFL. This was 5 years in the making. And now, here's where it all changes. 1999, where Kurt Warner entered the season as the backup to Trent Green. What would happen next would shock everyone.
Now we've got Trent Green down. We've got Trent Green down in the middle of the field.
We will rally around Kurt Warner, and we'll play good football.
Warner, pump fake, into the end zone, looking for the end zone again, he's got a wide open King, going back for more, he got Isaac Bruce wide, he'll go in again, his 3rd touchdown, with a pump fake, looking down the middle, touchdown, 3 incompletions.
After throwing for 41 touchdowns and winning MVP, he helped the Rams win the Super Bowl. And this offense is often talked about as the best ever. 2 years later, he would win MVP once again and led the Rams to another appearance in the Super Bowl. But with this kick, this would pretty much end the era known as the greatest show on turf. And it was the beginning of the Patriots dynasty. After that 3-year run, it would be a while before Kurt Warner would play well again. It wasn't until 6 years later that he would have a career renaissance. The Arizona Cardinals put their full faith in him, and by 2008, the 37-year-old former 2-time MVP led them to the Super Bowl. He proved that he still had game, while making it to the Pro Bowl for the 4th time. What I like about Kurt Warner's story is it shows that you can be knocked down even after you've had major success and still find a way to bounce back. Number 4. Coincidentally, Kurt Warner would be a part of one of the most memorable plays in Super Bowl history, just on the wrong side of it.
Here they come. He gets it away and it's picked off at the goal line. There's a flag thrown on the run back. James Harrison to run it back, and Harrison is past midfield. Harrison going down the sideline. Harrison still on his feet. Harrison is going to go all the way. Touchdown signal.
Today, at the age of 39, James Harrison is the oldest active defensive player in the NFL, which is mostly due to his attention to detail and his insane work ethic. I mean, have you seen some of this dude's workout videos? This insane drive to be great is the reason that James Harrison is even in the NFL, because there was a point in time when he almost quit football after being cut 4 times. Around 1998, after showing a lack of maturity and getting poor grades in high school, no one wanted James Harrison. He would eventually walk on to Kent State, and over the course of the next few years, he became one of the best players in the conference. Here's an interesting fact. In his very last collegiate game, which was against Miami of Ohio, he would walk away with 5 sacks, and the other team's quarterback was Ben Roethlisberger. Although he was first team all-conference, he went on to be undrafted. Shortly after the draft, he would sign with the Steelers, where he would spend 2 years on and off the practice squad. After being cut 3 times by the Steelers, he would get picked up by the Ravens, where he would be sent to the NFL Europe League, only to be cut once again. He had a hard time grasping the game, and just being coachable at the NFL level. At this point, Harrison started to consider retiring, and if it wasn't for Steelers player Clark Higgins, who ended up getting injured during the 2004 training camp, Harrison would have never played football again. But due to this injury, he would receive another chance from the Steelers. He would play sparingly, mostly on special teams and as a backup to Steelers legend Joey Porter. And that's when 2007 came along. This marked the year that the Steelers controversially decided to not re-sign Porter, which was shocking news because of how great of a player he was, and James Harrison was to take his spot. 2008 marked one of the greatest single seasons that you'll ever see. He racked up 7 forced fumbles and 16 sacks. He would later be named Defensive Player of the Year, and then he capped it off with that stunning play in the Super Bowl.
Running down the near side of the 30, has a block and cuts back the other way. He is in! Touchdown, Pittsburgh!
So starting in 2007, Harrison went to 5 straight Pro Bowls. And although he's had his fair share of controversy, remember this, Harrison was once considered too small to play in the NFL.
Bill gets a Polamalu.